Brovender Parsha Shiur of the WebYeshiva, and we're going to look at a few psukim in the parasha. The parasha is full of interesting parts. We're going to look at things that we usually don't look at. If we look at the sheet, at the bottom of the sheet, there are a few psukim from the beginning of the parasha, which we want to look at. Okay, by the Hashem al Moshe Lemor, by the Hashem al Moshe Lemor, that's a pasuk that's repeated again and again in the Torah. And as we understand it, it doesn't have any content. It just emphasizes the fact that the Torah was received by Moshe from Hashem. And that's what it's not new content. It's the same thing over again. How many times the Torah has to say that? We don't know, but we know that Moshe Rabbeinu said it one time, Mecheni na misifrucha. He's told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you don't forgive Bnei Israel for the sin of the golden calf, then erase me. What exactly Moshe Rabbeinu meant and why erasing him from the Torah would be a boon for Bnei Israel, I mean, is not so clear, even though there are marvelous attempts to explain it. And yet, Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, according to, as we remember, according to Rav Nachman of Breslov, Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, it must be the lack of humility that is in me that is preventing me from accomplishing my goal, which is to find mercy for Bnei Israel. And so Moshe Rabbeinu said, erase me. All those psukim where I appear without particular content, which seems to be just to honor me, erase those psukim, and maybe then I will be able to defend Bnei Israel, because I will no longer be lacking that humility. So that's what I think of when we read the pasuk by the Hashem al Moshe Lemor. But Rashi doesn't comment. Rashi doesn't comment because there's no content to the pasuk. Rashi never comments that. Now the next pasuk is a little more complicated. The next pasuk says, Aaron v'amarta elav. Now we remember that at this time in Bamidbar, Moshe and Aaron are going to suddenly be disparate in their jobs. Moshe and Aaron are going to share certain things. V'amarta elav, say to him, Baha'alotcha neirot al mul pnei hamenorah, ya'iru shivat neirot. So the topic that Moshe Rabbeinu is asked to share with Aaron has to do with the Beit HaMikdash, or the Mishkan, the tabernacle. And Moshe Rabbeinu says to Aaron HaKohen, Baha'alotcha et haneirot. So we were trained by Rashi to understand that the Torah should always use the more obvious word. And if it uses the less obvious word, then it's probably got some sort of hidden reason for that. So Rashi takes us by hand and says this, Baha'alotcha. And he asks a question which is found in the Medrash. Lama nismecha. Lama nismecha parshat hamenorah. That's this parasha that we're learning. Le parshat hanisiyim, which is the parasha that precedes it, the end of the parasha of Naso, where all the nisiyim were asked to bring karbanot for Chanukat HaMizbeach. So sometimes lama nismecha is explained. I mean, theoretically, you could ask, isn't it true that every pasuk should follow some sort of order in the Torah? Every pasuk should every section should logically follow the previous section. So here, where the Gemara says "Lama nismecha," we understand it makes sense. But the Gemara and the Medrash only say "Lama nismecha" if they have an answer. If they don't have an answer, they don't make the comment. And so Rashi follows along, and if he doesn't have an answer, he doesn't say "Lama nismecha." But in this case, he does have an answer. So the question is, why is the parsha of the menorah, that's the beginning of the בהעלתך, follow parshat HaNesiim, the parsha where the Nesiim, the leaders of the different tribes, brought korbanot to start off the avoda in the Beit at the Mishkan? Answer: Lefi shera'a Aaron Chanukat HaNesiim Parshat da'ato. So the words mean, when Aaron saw what was going on, that the Nesiim, the leaders of the various tribes, were bringing all these korbanot, and he didn't bring any, right? Chalsha da'ato, he kind of became weak-minded. He had a stroke. Aaron, became sick. Shelo haya imahem b'Chanukah. He was not taking an active part in the Chanukah. Lo hu v'lo shivto. Neither he nor his shevet. The shevet is Levi. The shevet of Levi. Omar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu chayech. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu took an oath. Shelcha gedola mishelahem. What you're going to get is greater than what they got. We know what they got, but we don't know exactly what Aaron got. What they got was to bring all these korbanot on the day of the when the Mishkan was dedicated. Sha'ata madlik umetiv et hanerot. So there's a story that Rashi tells us that בהעלתך et hanerot doesn't mean, it's just something that the Kohen does, but it's very personal. You, Aaron, I'm talking to you, Moshe Rabbeinu says, בהעלתך et hanerot. When you light the lights in the menorah, in the Mishkan. After all, Aaron said there's something wrong. Why am I not included? Why can't I light the candles? Why can't I do the sacrifices in the Mishkan? Chalsha da'ato. He felt he shouldn't be excluded. And he was excluded. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to him, בהעלתך, this is for you. I'm saying something to you, right? And what I'm saying to you is, Shelcha gedola mishelahem. You see, it's sort of underlined. Shelcha, what you're going to get is greater than what they got. She'ata madlik umativ et hanerot. So we know all the questions that people have asked in the past. Why Chalsha da'ato? Why should, this is mostly the Ramban who asks these questions. Chalsha da'ato. What does that mean? Why was he unhappy? After all, Aaron HaKohen participated. He was the Kohen who participated in all of the sacrifices that were brought by all of the Nesiim, by all of the princes of the tribes. So why did he? What was the point of him feeling bad? God says to him, and because you feel badly, you're going to get something that they don't have. You're going to light the candles. Now, Rashi leaving us here at this point, I mean, it really doesn't seem to make much sense. Why would lighting candles be the equivalent of or better than actually participating in the sacrifices? I mean, it was lighting the candles just a job for the Kohen. How does it compare to all the sacrifices that were brought by the sacrifices that were brought by the Nesiim? Let's look at the continuation in Rashi. Rashi says, "Baha'alotcha." He's going to explain that word. He'll explain the word "Baha'alotcha." Al Shem Shahalahav Oleh. Why is it called Baha'alotcha? When you take up, when you bring up the candles, when you bring up the lights. Al Shem Shahalahav Oleh. Katuv Badlakato Lishon Aliyah. That somehow the idea of going up is appropriate for the candles. It starts off lower and it gets stronger as it goes along. Shetzarich ladlik ad shetehei shalhevet ola ve'eleha. You have to like hold a match or some fire to the candle until the thing goes up. So Rashi has Rashi has explained to us why the word Baha'alotcha at Nerot is appropriate. It's appropriate. V'od darash Rabbeinu mikan shema'ala haita lifnei hamenorah sha'aleha hakohen omed. That there was a little ladder that was sitting next to the menorah, and the Kohen couldn't reach the candles otherwise, so he went up on the little ladder, and then he Kohen Omed Umeitiv, and so that's another reason for using the word Mahalotcha. When you go up on this little ladder in order to reach the candles and to light them. Right, then the Mahalotcha et HaNeirot. Then the two other phrases, there's the phrase El Mul Pinei HaMenorah, facing the face of the menorah, Pinei HaMenorah. Ya'iru Shivat HaNeirot. Ya'iru Shivat HaNeirot. Then Rashi talks about the word HaMenorah, El Mul Ner Emtzai She'eno Bikanim. Okay, the menorah was set up in a special way, and that's what Rashi explains to us, but it's not what we're into we're discussing at the moment. Ya'iru Shivat HaNeirot. Ya'iru Shivat HaNeirot. Shisha Sha'al. Shisha Sha'al. Shisha Mizrachiyim Ponim Limul HaEmtzai. I mean, they were arranged in a way, there were 7 candles. Unlike Hanukkah, where there were 8 candles, but there were 7 candles, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side, facing the middle candle, right? mul ha'emtza'i, the middle candle, ha'ptilot shebahem, v'chein shlosha ha'ma'araviyim, Rashi ha'ptilot lemul ha'emtza'i. They put the wicks, if you had a cup, and the cup is full of oil, and you had a wick, you could put the wick either facing towards the middle or facing away from the middle. So they did it facing toward the middle, right? I'm saying, Yomru le'ora hu tzarich. Then finally the pasuk says, Vayas kein Aaron el mul pnei hamenorah ha'ela nerotea kasher tzivah Hashem et Moshe. Vayas kein Aaron la'agid shivcho shel Aaron shelo shina. So Aaron is the hero of this story. Aaron feels badly that he's not involved. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Aaron through Moshe Rabbeinu, don't worry, you'll get yours. You'll get something better than bringing korbanot. You'll be able to light the menorah. Be able to light the menorah. And since the menorah is lit every night, we can understand that maybe that's what is meant. That the Chanukas HaMizbeach is once in a lifetime. One Mizbeach, right? They have Chanukas HaMizbeach. And here he lights the candles every night. And of course, since the candles are the lighting of light in the Beit HaMikdash, there's no doubt that they were intended, at least we know from the Beit HaMikdash, we may not know it from we don't know it from this story, the story of the Mishkan, but in the Beit HaMikdash, the Kodesh Kodashim, the holiest place of all in the Beit HaMikdash, had windows. And the windows in the Beit HaMikdash were shkufim atumim. Shkufim atumim. They were narrow on the inside and wide on the outside. In modern lingo, we call that a taggart foot. That was the way the English built the forts that they set up to protect themselves during the time of the Crusades. The idea was that somebody with a bow could stand in back of the narrow part of the window and yet look out and see much more of what was going on outside, and that would be a way of attacking. But when we say that the Beit HaMikdash had windows that were shkufim atumim, we mean that the light of the menorah could go out. After all, the menorah was lit at night in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Mishkan. It was lit at night. At night, there was nobody there. Nobody in the Beit HaMikdash until morning when the Kohen came to clean out the cups of oil and throw away the wicks and replace it all. But the windows were made so that the light from the inside, where there was nobody, could burst forth to the outside to become part of the town that they lived in, the place of Yerushalayim, the place that Torah was being reconstituted, and that was the Hadlakat Nerot in the Beit HaMikdash. So you could argue that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu meant, that Hashem wanted Moshe Rabbeinu to tell Aaron HaKohen, was that while the Kohan, the Nisiyim, were responding to the demand of Chanukat HaMizbeach, had to do it in a special way, had to do it in the way they had learned. Aaron HaKohen was promised that the light of Torah that emanates from the Beit HaMikdash would be under his control. He would be responsible. And that, interestingly enough, the Ramban continues to kind of make the point that even after the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, the Neirot of the Beit HaMikdash were represented again by the Neirot of Hanukkah, which were lit once a year for 8 days. And as a result, the idea that was started by Aaron HaKohen that the light of the candles of the Mishkan had to be lit was continued even after the Churban Beit HaMikdash. That's according to the Ramban. And therefore, there was really a bracha that Aaron received. He was able to do something that was quite remarkable. The only question that remains is, why did Aaron have to be so unhappy? Why did he have to go into a depression? What was the thing that bothered him so much? And for that, the Ramban seems to answer, and I've spoken about this in the past, but the Ramban seems to answer that the Nesiim not only brought korbanot to Chanukat HaMizbeach, but they even brought korbanot that were probably not part of the original command, like the korban chatat and hasham, the sin offerings. They brought sin offerings to the Beit HaMikdash, to the Mizbeach in the Mishkan. So you can say, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is that you can't bring a sin offering unless you sin. It's like, it doesn't work that way. You can't say to this animal, you're a sin offering, and then continue to sacrifice him. But apparently, and this is what the Ramban says, that the sin offering that was brought and the other korbanot that were brought, that are usually brought only on special occasions, were brought by the Kohanim, with the approval of heaven. And not only was there approval of heaven, but in heaven, it was decided that whenever there would be a Chanukat HaMizbeach, and there were at least 2 others that we know about, and a third one that is coming, whenever there would be a Chanukat HaMizbeach, they would do it in the way that the Nesiim determined. So if we say that Aaron was distressed about what happened in the Mishkan with the sacrifice that were brought by the Nesiim, we could say that his distress came from the fact that they wrote the Torah of Chanukat HaMizbeach, that the Nesiim were the ones who the Nesiim were the ones who determined how it would be done. Even though it looks like it was a command from heaven, it was a command from heaven, but the extra korbanot that they brought out of the goodwill that they had, those extra korbanot were what made Aaron unhappy. Aaron said, yes, I have a job. I have avodah. There are things that I do because I'm a Kohen. But it's not, how could it compare to what the Nesiim did? They brought it on their own, and in heaven they agreed that that was the right way to do it. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Aaron HaKohen, you are not only going to get a greater reward, but your reward is going to be the spreading of Torah from the Beit HaMikdash, even after the Churban Beit HaMikdash. And since after the Churban Beit HaMikdash, Bnei Israel turned into the people of the Torah, not the people of the Korbanot, or as they were previously, they became the people of the Torah, right? I've mentioned before, people of the book. We became the people of the book. What book are we talking about? Of course, the book of the Torah. And I don't think there's another nation that was ever defined or classified by a book. Only the Jewish people have reached that level. Okay, that's what we wanted to mention about the beginning of בהעלתך. And I'll just tell you one other thing about the parsha. You remember the pasuk in Bereshit. The angels come to Abraham Avinu to give him information. First about Sarah, who's going to have a child, and about Sodom and Amorah, it's going to be destroyed. And in the middle of this story, it says, Vayifnu misham anashim vayalchu Sodoma. The Anashim, as the Rambam says in the beginning of Hilchot Deot, the Rambam says Anashim is another word which means Malachim, angels. And we're talking about the angels who came to visit Avraham Avinu after his circumcision. Vayivnu misham ha'anashim vayelchu Sodoma. And they went on the direction to Sodom. Abraham odenu omeid lifnei Hashem. Abraham is standing, waiting lifnei Hashem. I don't know why he's standing. He's not moving. I guess they're leaving. People are leaving. So he was the person they came to visit. So he's standing and waiting for them to leave. So what could this mean? Odenu omeid lifnei Hashem. I don't know exactly. He's standing before Hashem, but the angels are leaving. Something is staying. Rashi says, "V'lo lo halach la'amod lefanav, ela Hakadosh Baruch Hu ba'etzlo." He says, how could the pasuk say that Abraham Odenu still was standing lifnei Hashem, as though Abraham generated this meeting? Rashi says, "Halo lo halach la'amod lefanav, ela Hakadosh Baruch Hu ba'etzlo." That God did not that he did not stand before God, but God came to stand before him. Etzlo. Ba'etzlo v'amar lo zakat Sodom v'amorah. And he came to tell him God was still there about Sodom v'amorah. Ki rabbah v'aya lo lichtov Hashem odenu omeid lifnei Abraham. So the pasuk should have said, Hashem still stands before Abraham. Ela tikun sofrim huzeh. This is called tikun sofrim. Now the words literally mean something fixed by sofrim. Sofrim are scribes. The people who wrote the Torah knew what, I guess, I mean, I'm not really, I don't think we can really interpret it that way, but again, what does it say in the pasuk that Abraham was still standing, where it was Hashem who came to stand before Abraham, and it should have said, "Vayah lo lichtov." You see the line there, "Vayah lo lichtov." Vayah lo lichtov Hashem odenu omeid lifnei Abraham. I'm reading Rashi. I'm not reading somebody who is not acceptable. He says, "Vayah lichtov Hashem odenu omeid lifnei Abraham." Ela tikun sofrim hu. The sofrim took what should have been and they said, no, we'll erase it and we'll write something else. Asher avchu hu zal lichtov kein. Whatever that means. I mean, you understand that Rashi himself has trained us to think that the Torah is very perfect and every word that is used properly. And here, this idea of Tikkun Sofrim, which by the way appears in various versions of Tanaitic material, and in fact, in some of these places, indicated that there were 18 tikkunei sofrim, 18 times psukim were used, and then, a certain pasuk was written, then it was rejected, and something else was written in its place. So I wanted to look at the Siftei Chachamim. Look at the Siftei Chachamim. Siftei Chachamim is Siftei Chachamim, a sort of a compilation. Compilation, I mean, it's not a perush, it's a combination of perushim. So the Siftei Chachamim says, Ein hakavana chalila. Chalila, it's a good word. It's not our intention, or Rashi's intention, shows sifu, o shehotiru, al ma shekatuv b'Torah, that they added to or retracted from whatever should have been written in the Torah. That's not the point. Afilu otachat chalila, even just one letter. Ela ha'inyan. What does Rashi mean when he says tikkun sofrim? Tikkun sofrim hu shehem diktiku umatzu inyan kol echad ve'echad min haktuvim hahem. They looked at it and they said both of these versions are possible. Not that what we have is wrong. We could have had the other one also. Ktuvim hahem she'ikar hakavana lo hayta kimo shenir'eh mima shenichtav. The main idea is not exactly what it looks like. Shenir'eh mima shenichtav. B'sefer, ma shenichtav b'sefer, ela tzad kavana acheret. It has a different implication. In other words, you could say, according to the Siftei Chachamim, it's like a kriyuch tiv. There are two ways of learning it. The two ways of learning it. One is that God is standing before Abraham, and the other is that Abraham is standing before God. Okay. El kavana acheret v'lo haya lo lichtov Abraham Odenu Omeid. It was not proper to write that Abraham Odenu Omeid. Lo haya lomar ela v'Hashem Omeid, ela shekina hakatuv v'lo kiram tikkun sofrim, ela shem diktiku. The reason it's called tikkun sofrim, not because they fixed something, ela shem diktiku, they were careful about it, or pirshu, shehem kinuyim, and all of this he quotes the Rashba. For those of you who know the Rishonim, the Rashba is very important Rishon, and the things that he says are very taken to heart. So we don't know. I mean, this idea of tikkun sofrim, an idea which sounds like it means that the Torah was kind of edited and exchanged at different times, or one nusach for another, is not acceptable. Now, there's a pasuk in Bamidbar, Perek Yud Aleph, in our parsha, Baha'alotcha. With this, we will finish today. Im kacha atal sali, hargeini naharog. If that's the way it's going to be, I want you to kill me. Im matzati chen be'einecha. If I found favor in your eyes, well, I don't want to have to look at the ra'ati. Rashi, Ale Rebbe Rati, it's a pasuk in Baha'alotcha. Beratam hayalo lechtov, not berati. He didn't do anything, Moshe Rabbeinu. Beratam, it's a pasuk about what they did. Hayalo lechtov, ela shekina hakatuv. Shekina hakatuv. It's like a kind of a popular way of writing the pasuk. V'zechad mitikunei sofrim, and here in our parsha, we also have one of the tikunei sofrim that we talked about in Bereshit, v'Torah lekinui u'letikun halashon. Lekinui, kinui is like a popular way of saying it. U'letikun halashon, letikun halashon. So the Ibn Ezra immediately says, "V'matzati chaim be'einecha." Od b'ra'a sha'ani ba, v'ein tzarich v'tikun hasofrim. He says, he explains the pasuk, K'mo hamiteni v'zeh asa li b'tzidkatcha u'ba'avur piyus v'zeh ta'am v'matzati chaim be'einecha v'al er'eh od b'ra'a sha'ani ba. B'ra'a. In other words, even Ezra says you don't have to use the teruts of tikkun sofrim, vein serich l'tikkun sofrim. But Rashi says you do need the tikkun sofrim. He says, so we come again to the tikkun, to the Siftei Chachamim, who is explaining Rashi. Rotzelomar kederech sofrim, like scribes, כשכותבים ספרים, I'm sorry. It's כשכותבים ספרים, מגיעים אותם דרך כתיבתן. While you write, you also edit, you also review. This is what God described to Moshe Rabbeinu. Shekatav Torah litaken halashon, to make it clearer, to make things clearer, so that we see from the two instances of the Sfat Emet, Siftei Chachamim, I'm sorry, the two instances of the Siftei Chachamim that we learn. We see, I think, the beginning of בהעלתך and this problem of Tikkun Sofrim, that you see that the tradition of interpretation takes into account the fact that there's a reality. There's a reality. Aaron HaKohen was legitimately distressed about the fact that he did not participate in the same way as the Nesiim in Chanukat HaMizbeach. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him that your distress is correct. You're correct, but you're going to get something even better. And it could be you're getting something better because of your distress. Your distress means that you felt the need to be part of something that you were excluded from. And also in the parsha of בהעלתך, that's the beginning of בהעלתך, the continuation of בהעלתך, we saw this idea, which is explained by the Rashba and correlated by the Siftei Chachamim and Rashi, that Tikkun Sofrim is about the problems that we had with Sofrim. copyists. I mean, it's really, today, every Sefer Torah that you would find any place in the world, practically, I haven't been there, I haven't seen them, but I'm just saying that they're all the same. It's all the same. You look in the Tanakh Korain, the original Tanakh Korain, the quote in the Torah, two places where there might be two places where there's an additional vav, vayehi or vayu. It's amazing. We've copied the Torah for at least 3,000 years. And after 3,000 years, and everybody knows who's ever written anything or typed anything or put anything down on a piece of paper, that it's very difficult to get absolute perfection. But the Sofrim today have reached the point where they just don't make any mistakes. When you get the Sefer Torah, if you buy a Sefer Torah, you get it after it's been reviewed and checked, and it always turns out to be perfect, and so we don't really need Tikkun Sofrim. We don't need the concept of Tikkun Sofrim, even though it's found its way into Rashi. So we learned the pasuk at the beginning of בהעלתך, the pasuk at the end of בהעלתך, and Yes Hashem, I wish you all a good Shabbos. All the best there.